don't make your first 10,000 until you lose 1,000. You don't make your first 100,000 until you lose 10,000. You don't make your first million until you lose 100,000. That year I lost, 2023, I came back 2024 and grossed $1 million in 11 months.
Dawon Matthews, a 32-year-old man, couldn't get hired due to his criminal record. Now his food truck brings in over $1 million a year.
I remember walking in there, and I think my highest day was like $10,000 in a day. And the line was around the corner. I'm like, this shit about to go crazy. And then from there, it just went crazy.
You open this food truck. Within the first 11 months, you made the first $1 million. Why was it so successful so quickly?
We're in a microwavable generation when people hate waiting. So we were really intentional about.
Okay, so when I started this show, there were so many people that told me, Callum, you will never make it off of a podcast. You have to be famous first, or you have to have a lot of money to have a successful show. Well, I guess that we proved them wrong, and we're going to continue to do that. And so before we get into the episode, I have one ask for you, and that is to subscribe to this channel. And if you do, I'm going to make you a promise that we will continue to prove the haters wrong, and we'll continue to take this show to greater and greater heights. That means investing in the production, the storytelling, the marketing, scaling the guests so that every single week we bring you better episodes. So subscribe to the channel. Let's get better together. Onto the episode. You know what? Here's where I wanted to begin, because a few weeks ago, I wasn't actually aware of you or your story. Mm-hmm. And then I come across this article online and I read the headline. It instantly hooked me in. Mm-hmm. It goes, a 32-year-old man couldn't get hired due to his criminal record. Now his food truck brings in over $1 million a year. And so we're going to get into the success, the businesses, everything that you've built. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to start with an intention, which is, who do you hope, first of all, hears this conversation? Mm-hmm. And then what do you hope is the impact of the conversation that we're about to have?
So for me, completely doing this is like new, speaking on my story and actually, talking about it and bringing people into my life. I'm a very private person, but the more and more, I share, the more and more inspiration I give to others who, just are looking for that second chance. So people who, been, doubted, been basically, been told no, more of people who have a background, just anybody who's just, looking for some inspiration to get up and just start and not worry about being labeled and stuff like that. I hope they can take this story and hear it and, get inspired by it and do something.
I love that. It's a beautiful intention. Mm-hmm. You know what? I wanted to start right in the beginning. Even in the headline in the article, it mentions the criminal record. For you, even reflecting back, what were the series of events that led you to even have a criminal record in the first place?
Right. So I wasn't a bad kid, like, at all. Right. I was never a bad kid. I kind of got myself into, a situation while being in college. And, in college, things are like kind of blown out, the water to basically, if you get in a fight on the streets, it's like, oh, they were just fighting. But you get in a fight in college, it's like, okay, there's an assault with a deadly weapon, right? And bottles and stuff were thrown and, people got hit with bats and stuff like that. And it was just, one of those wild college nights, right? And, besides that, I never got in trouble before college. And then after that, I would say, my environment, my surroundings and being around, a different environment got me into a lot of trouble. Not being able to, see a lot of people that look like me, that had a similar understanding. Well, it's just a fight. No, it wasn't. It was, I was in a space on where there were people who didn't get in fights a lot, and they didn't see fights happen like that a lot. And so when they seen those type of things, they looked at it and went, no, this is like animalistic. Like somebody's been hit with a bat. Somebody's been hit with a bottle. Like this guy is like we're crazy. But, I'm from the streets of Philadelphia. That happens all day long, right? But I would just say, my environment and being, just being an inner city kid, going to college, it was just a culture shock for me. And, I ended up getting myself in trouble there.
Yeah. I watched a video where you said that you spoke about being an inner city, like being an inner city kid. Mm-hmm. and you didn't have mentors that you could look to. Talk to me about that.
So it was like I grew up in Philadelphia, kind of poor in North Philly, kind of poor neighborhood and stuff like that. And we don't really see people make it out of there. Like I can name on my hands, right? I'm 32 years old. During my journey, I lost 3 friends 2 years while being in Houston. And then prior to that, I don't even hear from the other ones that I actually grew up with. So I can't remember anybody growing up wise in Philadelphia that was successful. I don't remember drug dealers that were successful. I don't remember businessmen that were successful. I don't remember seeing anybody. And I remember saying to myself, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to be like these people. Like, I'm just not going to fall victim to what this is like creating, because we just grew up never seeing, you know, nobody become successful out of that environment. So, you know, I always say I didn't see people I wanted to be like. I always seen people I didn't want to be like. So that took me, you know, to take a different approach to life, you know, a different approach towards basically, you know, earning money and becoming a businessman.
Yeah. You know, we're going to get into it and the different approach that you took. But you mentioned like not seeing people that you wanted to be like, and even just having that realization at a pretty early point of like, I'm going to be different. At that point in time, at that early stage, what were your aspirations? Like, when you would look into the future, what would you see for your life? What did you hope to achieve?
It's funny, right? Because I've always been a visionary. I always dreamed, right? I always been a visionary. I remember one time, this is a funny little story. I was in like WWE, and I got my behind whipped for this, but I took all the baby powder and just like made a ring. And my mom came to me, she's like, "Why you got all this baby powder?" I'm like, "It's snowing." It was snowing. We're fighting in the snow, right? Because I seen it on TV, and I had The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, right. And then she was just like, "Where do you come up with this stuff at?" Right. But then that takes it to where me and my friend DJ, and I hope he sees this interview one day. I think we were 11, and we decided, you know, let's make the corner store more convenient. So we went around the corner and bought all of the snacks from the corner store and just got a crate and sold them on this crate. The house was abandoned, but it had like a front porch with no gates on it. So we just set up there and just say, "Hey, you don't got to walk. You can just buy your stuff from us." And we didn't make any more money. We just decided to go, "Okay, you guys don't got to walk that far. Come get it from here." So I don't know, man. I just always been a visionary, man. Always dreamed of doing bigger things. And I just never seen myself, you know, again, just being stuck in that environment. That just wasn't for me. I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah. Being stuck in that environment. You know what? It's, I saw one of the things that even when I was doing the research and just like the background is you excelled in high school and you were like an athlete. Like, talk to me about you used to talk about just how much of a shock it was even going into college. Do you think that shock and that discomfort and kind of like being out of your comfort zone led to the assault and everything that happened on that night? Oh,
yeah, most definitely. Like I said, in high school, you know, I was an athlete. You know, I went to school with like a mixed crowd. But I used to just hang out in my culture, right? I went to college at Millersville University. That was one of the first schools I went to before I got kicked out. And in Philadelphia, we have a different dynamic of just upbringing and culture. Like, it's not like the South where, you know, you'll see different cultures blend and they'll just be together. It's literally separate. At Millersville University, you know, to this age, you know, they still have an active Klan. And for people who don't know what a Klan is, like the KKK, like it's like really outward, like this is what we do and stuff like that, right? And so when I started to notice it, like going to college, and you know, I came from a blend high school, so hanging out with baseball players who were Caucasian was like cool, like it was like okay, whatever. But me and my friend Chima, who was another African American, a basketball guy, we just went to a baseball party, and I think at that moment was the first time in my life I was experiencing like scared racism, right? Because I experienced racism in high school because I was dating a Caucasian lady, and her dad was, you know, not too fond of me. But I think experiencing it to where you're like kind of like, hold up, like we got to defend ourselves, and it's, you know, it's not, well, people tend to look at us as black big men and be like, oh, I'm intimidated by them. These kids weren't intimidated. You know, they were bigger than us, and they were, I don't like you, and you're the N-word. And I'm gonna say it to your face, and every time I see you, you're the N-word. And at that moment, with us being in that scene of being in that party, it was about 6 of them, and it was just me and Chima and the Caucasian woman that I was with that night. And yeah, it was just it was a shock. And I think what also took it to another level was the way they kind of handled the case or handled me as a person. You know, they didn't come and arrest me and set me down. You know, they brought in 20 something cops to arrest me on campus. And, you know, it was an humiliating, you know, moment, but it was more of, at that time, I seen scared racism, like I might not make it. Like something don't feel right here. You know, and yeah.
It's instinctual. It's like you can feel it when there's that sort of...
Yeah, like, and you also get that, you like, it's that scared racism. Like, it's more of like, all right, they not playing fair, and they're not going to play fair. And it doesn't matter how much you come out to be a good person, that doesn't matter here. And I think that experiencing that was kind of, you know, one of those things where I'm like, I'm in a culture shock. I got to get out of here.
Yeah. You know, in the article it says, as a freshman, he was charged with aggravated assault after a party brawl, for which he was expelled from school and served 6 months in jail. I'm curious, just even going back to that point in time, like, the events of that night happen. It takes place. Where is your mind even at? Like, you've gone to college with all of these aspirations, and in one night it's all changed. Like, where are you at as a human?
I don't know. Like, it was, like I said, when you speak on scared racism, right? You speaking on a topic to where, you know, you look back on the 50s and the 40s, and you understand lynching, right? And when you speak on it to where is this type of racism, you know, when I didn't understand it was real until they shut the cell doors. And it was, you know, I remember my first time, I just don't know how to, I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to use the phone. I didn't know how to get on the phone. I didn't know how to call my mom. I didn't know how to do anything. And at that point, it's like, I'm stuck here. Like, I'm stuck. And then after that, you know, I got let out. And outside of that, once I got let out, you know, the newspaper article hit. And I was like the player, like nominated to be like one of the players of the years in 2011 at my high school. So I went from being that guy who's in the paper for scoring and doing really well to now I'm that guy, like, here is Dawon Matthews. And at that point, it just hit the internet, and it was just like, you know, you kind of look at those things and you just say, you know, you see comments, you see certain people that you that knows you are a good kid, but still say things under those, you know, pictures to make you feel, you know, a certain way. And sometimes you got to look at them and just say, like, how can I even, you know, talk to you ever again, right? And then you see the newspaper up there, and it's the, you know, the N word and the H word, and the H word is hang 'em and do things like that. And it's like, you see a lot of hurtful things as a person, you know, being in that space. So yeah, I was embarrassed, but I was more of hurt, just due to the fact of the way that this town that I did really well in sports wise and brought a bunch of, you know, publicity to in sports wise, turn their back like a snap of a finger.
Yeah. Did you feel like you lost your opportunity? Like, did you feel like you'd thrown it away?
Yeah, but then at that point I wasn't thinking about sports. I was trying to go home. Like, so I wasn't thinking about sports at that time.
Yeah. You remember that you spoke about, like, not even knowing how to, like, call your mom or make calls. You remember what that first call with your mom was like?
Yeah, it was like shaky. She was like, she gonna get me out of there. You know what I'm saying? But we don't really have money. So you gotta sit there until you gotta find somebody who do got money. And I think the lady I was kind of dating at that time, her sister kind of put up a lot of the bail money for me to get out. And then I just, the court dates came up, and that's when they sentenced me to 6 months for that one.
Yeah. You know, we were talking before this, we spoke like a week ago. And one of the things that you mentioned, you said, just talking about the experience of even being in prison, like being in jail, you said it made me into a different person because I was in jails with people who murdered people. I was in the hole with a guy who was next to me who literally went to court and got a life sentence for murdering people. What was that like, that evolution, the shift that it caused in you as a person, just being in prison and the people that you were around at that time?
Well, when you first attempt to look at it and you think about it, you think like you feel stupid because you're around a bunch of people who literally, do dumb things, and you could tell somebody's supposed to be here, right? And then, you just also think to yourself like, man, I can't live my life this way. And for I think your viewers who don't understand what the whole is, like, and I always say, because it's what they tell us, before we even make decisions in jail, they say lock yourself in the bathroom for 30 days. And not just lock yourself in the bathroom for 30 days. When you come out, you shower in a cage, and they feed you in that cage, and the only time you are actually able to move and walk is in that cage. So they say before you make a decision and before you think about doing something, lock yourself in the bathroom for 30 days and don't open the door. And at that point, your mind goes to a place where you start to hallucinate. Like you start to literally, if you don't got God in that space, you ain't gonna make it in that space. You're gonna go insane. And so, for me, the shock was, I'm not coming back here. I don't care how I go down, I'm not coming back here. But in reality, I also spoke to people who kind of gave me, I want to say, a blueprint on just life, period. Those people, I forget the kid name, man. He was, I think he's about 22 years old. And he was fighting somebody, and he hit that person, and his head hit the ground, and he died. And unfortunately, he was in that Millersville area, and he got a life sentence. He went to court. He came back. And he said, "Bro, I'm not ever going home." And I remind you, in the whole, when you talking to somebody, you're talking to somebody next door to where you don't know what they look like. You only see them when they go out to go to court in shackles, and then they come back. So you basically, when I did see this person, I'm like, yo, this kid, this is a kid. And finally, he couldn't have been no bigger than 5'9". And he was just like, I'm never going home. And at that point, I'm just like, yo, yeah, I ain't coming back here. Like I said, I ain't never have a lot of role models. I just had people I didn't want to end up like, right? And in that moment, I was like, nah, I ain't coming back here.
You know what? Even in our conversations before this, you always spoke about faith. I'm like, at that point in time, with that collection of events and everything that had happened to you in such a quick succession, right? Like, you can tell me better than I can say it, but it feels like everything happened so fast, and your situation goes from being like this college kid and this student athlete to now completely different. You even mentioned like you start hallucinating in there.
You begin to hallucinate, yeah.
What is keeping you going at that point in time?
I got a weird obsession for proving people wrong too. I have a weird obsession with that, and like I said, everything happens for a reason. It was spaces when I've been in there, and I had people leave me that I thought was, gonna be there for me, And, my strength for proving people wrong is stronger than, me looking at any situation and thinking that I can't do this. I always feel like, at that moment, I said, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I didn't stop messing up and going back to jail, but I got in college, which was Manor University. I got into the easiest college to get into to get my associates first. And like I said, outside of being in college, I was still taking college classes, and then I got locked up. And then, knowing the principal, I guess it's my second time being locked up, knowing the principal of Manor, he basically held all my classes and stopped them. And then as soon as I came out, he let me redo classes. And then, it was just like at that point, I didn't get a degree because I thought that I was going to get a nice job and become something. I got a degree because, I looked at that newspaper article every day, and I just said, I'm going to remember the way you guys looked at me and said the things to me and what you said in these comments. And so at that point, I kind of, I was like, I'm coming back for everything that y'all try to take from me at that point.
You know what? I think about the labels that we put on people, especially when people get caught up in the legal system or go to prison. It's like those labels, it's like so destructive to their life and to their future. I'm like, you mentioned actually even going to prison the second time. And I think about one of the things that you'll hear people say a lot of the time is they get stuck in the system. And I think for people that haven't been involved in that, or like haven't been involved with the legal system, it's like, how do you get stuck in the system? Can you make it real for people what that feels like, and even how, because you tend to hear of people, they go to prison once and then they go again and again, and it becomes this cycle. How and like why does that take place? Have you ever had that one business idea that just won't leave you alone? You're in the shower thinking about it. You're at work thinking about it. You know it could be something big, but you keep telling yourself, I'll just get started with that when I have everything figured out. Or I just need a little bit more time before I can go all in. That was me for the longest time. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I had no system to do it. Then I came across Shopify, the sponsor of today's episode, and that changed everything. Shopify is the commerce platform that makes it simple to start, grow, and manage your business all in one place. Essentially, on their platform, you can manage payments, design, marketing. And the part that blew things open for me, Shopify now has an AI assistant called Sidekick. You can literally ask it to write your product descriptions, tweak your homepage, even create a new marketing plan for your business. It's like having a super intelligent co-founder who knows exactly what they're doing. And so if you have an idea that's been sitting in your head for months, this is your sign to get started. Go to shopify.com/Callum Johnson and start your free trial. That's shopify.com/Callum Johnson. Thank you to Shopify for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. Okay, so 7 years ago, I invested in my very first stock. At that point in time, I was just dabbling. I wanted to put something into the market and see how it worked. But when it came time to take my investing journey to the next level, I started using Public, the sponsor of today's episode. Public is the investing platform built for people who take it seriously. That's because you can build a multi-asset portfolio on Public that includes stocks, bonds, crypto, options, all in one place. You can even earn a 3.6% APY on your cash with no subscriptions or minimums. And the thing that makes Public different is how AI is woven directly into the experience, from portfolio insights to earnings call recaps. Their AI features give you clear context at every touch point. It literally helps you understand why assets are moving up and down. And Public is a FINRA registered, SIPC insured, US based company with a great customer support team. game. And you can fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/Callum. And right now you can earn an uncapped 1% match when you transfer your old portfolio, including IRA transfers, rollovers, and even contributions. So that's public.com/Callum. The link is in the description. This was paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures are in the podcast description. Thank you, and let's get back to the episode.
Well, for me, it's the same exact cycle as, basically addiction, right? And I don't want to say you addicted to doing bad things. That prison system is addicted to keeping you in there, and they'll do whatever they can to keep you in there. And that's why they put these mandatories on you. And so when I got out from doing 6 months the first time, they put me on 2 years of probation, right? And they suspended my driver's license. They said they gave me all these fines. I couldn't afford them. I'm a broke college kid. So they're like, all right, I got him here. Now let me suspend his driver's license. So now he can't go get a job because he can't drive to a job to even pay us back, right? And then you got to figure out ways around that stuff. And you'll have people come to you all day long and just say, well, you put yourself in this predicament, so you should figure it out. And, 90% of the people are trying to figure it out. Like, it's just in some way, in some shape and form, it's impossible, right? And if you don't understand, if you don't have the will to look at these systems and play them how they play you, you're going to be stuck there. And my thing was, I was always going to figure out how to play them how they play me. And when it came to that, it was more of me, doing, I always, I do the same thing in business. I was going to get them the best version of me, to where they had to look at me one day and say that he's not one of them. And that was something that I strive to do. Even today in business, I always tell them, even if it's just being a food truck, if you give somebody the best service, they're going to always be able to look at you and come back and say, this is just not an average food truck. So that mentality, was that stuck with me through a lot of that adversity and stuff like that to keep going. But, being stuck in that system, it's the probation, the laws, it's all those things. I don't have a driver's license to this day. But if you know the real law, and within the real law, we're not criminal lawyers or anything, but you don't need to have a driver's license to own a car. You can own a car without a driver's license. But they do these things to put those in your way, and then they leave these big balances on you. And then people don't even know that once you are done probation, if you're not done paying your fines, you're not leaving. So now after that 2 years of you basically being on that probation, let's say I get pulled over with driving without a license. After the third time, that's 90 days in jail. But I'm driving back and forth to college. I'm not driving selling drugs. I'm not driving doing criminal. I'm driving to go get my education. The judge seen that, I gotta give you a mandatory. Okay, that's 90 days in jail. Now I just stopped my college career because I'm driving to go to school. Okay. I laid my bed. I made my bed. Let me lay in it. So I go call email the principal and let him know this was happening. And he said, okay, Dawon, no problem. I'll put it on hold when you get back. And, that was a part of, I guess I want to say in business, to where I started to understand that it's more about who that can get you to where you need to get to. And then that principal, I'm so bad I don't got his name right now. He helped me get to the finish line. And he made sure I got to the finish line. And it only took me two years. At one time I was taking, I want to say seven classes in one semester, but I got it done. You know what I'm saying? He made sure that I got it done. But it's just, I remember playing, in college sports, like I said, with an ankle monitor on, like a college athlete with an ankle monitor on. In college games, okay, can I take this off just to play my game? Can I do this? No. They're going to humiliate you until they can't humiliate you no more. So, I guess that will, and, just playing them how they play you.
Yeah. You know what? I heard you say this. You said, I was pulled over 36 times in 12 months. And outside of being pulled over, I was raided twice. Once you're in the system, you're just labeled. That's what you are.
Yeah. November 2020 is when I bought one of my cars. That was my second car. It was a Bentley Bentayga, 2019, and I bought it for what? No, I bought that in 2022, and I bought it for my birthday. And I lived in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And I remember just driving and the cop just followed me, and I'm like, what's going on? And like nothing, where's your driver's license at? They know I don't have a license. I've been in y'all system for this long. Sir, I don't got one. I'm just going home, sir. Okay, step out, check your car. Checks my car. There's nothing in my car. That same cop pulled me over 3 times in that week. Prior to that, the next thing you know, that's when the raid came. And it wasn't a big raid. It was, I was always on probation. So they sent my probation officer in there and basically put your hands behind your back, and they checked my house. I don't sell drugs. I just do business. And at that point, that's when I was like, it's time to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So when they say, how do they keep you in the system? How do they keep you pinned up into something? These things all typically happen from a case that was in 2016.
Mm. Yeah. You know what? It's like, because I think about the person at home watching this, mm-hmm. and I even know from just like hearing your story and I think for a lot of like I didn't grow up in America, mm-hmm. but I know for a lot of like African Americans and people that grew up here, there's almost like there's a higher level of like scrutiny, mm-hmm. just a higher level of focus on your behavior, and the consequences of doing things are greater. Like the stakes are just higher. Mm-hmm. I'm curious for you, like, if you were advising your son and they're going to university and they're at that age where like there's moments even where they're like they could be reckless or like kind of act out, mm-hmm. given what you experienced, mm-hmm. and the consequences that you had to deal with based off those events, what advice would you have of just like how to move, how to navigate, just kind of staying on that straight and narrow? Like, I'm just curious what you would say to that person.
Oh, I got a son, so he 11. And, it's funny, like I said, God always puts you in places where you gotta, speak on some things to help somebody else on their next journey. But he's 11. Like, he's 11. He's going through that transition now. And the music, the ski mask, the being outside and the doing things. He's not a bad kid at all. But I always tell people that it's not about you being a bad kid. It's about you being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you can understand or identify which place is wrong or which place doesn't make sense for you, and which place, will get you in that trouble, you'll avoid them. And my situation could have been avoided if I would have just stayed home that day, but it didn't happen that way, right? And thank God it happened that way, because now I'm here to speak about it. But, I try to teach my son that all the time. And it's so hard, because when you tend to look, and this is my son, I know what America about to do to you. I know how they about to treat you. I know if you go this way, how they gonna treat you. If you go this way, how they gonna treat you. So, me walking my path, I try to say, don't do this. Don't be this weird. Don't be this place. Don't be that place. Don't wear that. Don't do that. And, he still does it. And those things happen, and then he comes to me and he say, Dad, and I'm like, I told you that was gonna happen. Right. So my thing is, my advice would just be, the biggest advice is, identify, certain areas and certain rooms, and understand how to read rooms. And if it's not for you, don't touch it. Mm-hmm. Like, don't put your energy in anything that doesn't reciprocate what you're trying to do. And understanding to be intentional about where you're going at is a major part too. Being in confusion, because that's what I was. I was in confusion. I was out partying. I didn't know if I wanted to play football or just go to college. and being in confusion. You know, when you're in confusion, you literally are in the it's a saying. You know, when you're confused, it's better to not know, right? Because when you're confused, you don't know what's going on. And just being intentional about, if you're gonna go to school to play ball and be college, go be a college athlete. Don't touch nothing. Don't drink. Just be a college athlete. If you want to go and get your education, go get your education. You know, don't try to mix into two different things, because that's what I did. I tried to think I could be a college athlete all day long, and one night of drinking turned into me being locked up 6 times and in the system for a really long time.
That focus and that discipline. You know what? I want to go to, you get out of prison and there's this period of time where you're actually looking for a job. And during that, I heard you talk about this. It was a 2-month period of time. You applied for 200 jobs.
Around 200, yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So yeah, like I said, I got in trouble when I first went to college, which was about 2012. And then I got out around that 2016, yeah. And then, you know, that's when I graduated with my bachelor's. So all of my colleagues and stuff are going out, and they're going into their internships, they're going into the jobs that they're going to do. And I'm just like, well, I got the paperwork. Like, let me see how this is going to work, right? And yeah, I'm always strategic on how I do things. So I like mapped it out. If I can fill out 10 applications a day, send my resume, do a follow-up right here, somebody will look at me, right? And I had people look at me, but then every time it got to the background sense of it, it just stopped. And at that point, you know, I remember having that one job that took a chance, and that was Verizon. And you know, the sales position, everybody gets that position. But I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna be the best salesman I can be when I get in here, man. You should have seen how pumped I was. I'm just like happy. Didn't really have a car, so I'm just getting there on the bus. I'm early. And I remember like being shot in the face when they were just like, you know, yeah, Dawon, we just need to do a background check. And I was just sitting there, and he was just, you know, the dude, we created a really good bond too. And he was just like, bro, I can't do nothing with it. And at that phase, I was just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, basically. I don't know. You know, I kind of looked at it, just went, you know, it's no way that, especially the people I was around, I'm like, I can kill this job. Like, I'll blow everybody in here out the water, but it's just no opportunities.
You felt defeated at that point?
Nah, I don't never feel defeated. I just feel like like I told you, I got this weird sense I'll be back.
In 2017, you launched your first business, a cleaning company called Wonderful Cleaning. Talk me through that decision, even to get into, because we're going to get into like some of the $1 million companies that you built, but like, talk to me into that decision of the first time you decide to open a business and it's a cleaning company.
Well, I was doing a bunch of research, and I was just looking at, you know, business ventures to where basically you didn't have to put up a lot of money to do it. I didn't have a lot of money at this point. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just start a cleaning company. And I remember doing my first job for my brother at his house. It was a move-out cleaning. And, you know, I messed it up pretty bad. But me and my friend did it. And I had got a logo and some business cards. And I just started. Like, I ain't have no knowledge of it, but I knew how to clean because my mom used to make me do my chores. So I was like, okay, you know, and that's what I want to tell people too, because a lot of people who are in the system, they're like, well, I don't know what to do. How do you start? How do you start? How do you start? Like, there was never no how I started. It was always I just started and figured everything out as you go. And you gotta be realistic with yourself, right? You can't, you know, my thing was I wasn't going to try to build a big super tech company. I had no money. Like, I had no money. I had this degree. I had a kid. I need to figure something out fast. And I need to look at industries that's, you know, you can kind of do by yourself and make the money and go from there with it. So it was cleaning. And that was kind of the easiest thing to go into at that point.
This is like fascinating to me. I think we spoke about this when we spoke before this. I was like, the humility of it. Because I know what that feeling is like when you just come out of university and all of your friends are doing like their internships, they're doing their corporate jobs, they're earning money, they're starting to get their first car, their first apartment, like whatever the thing is. And you have this experience where you've gone from being like a student athlete, and there's a certain level of like adulation and respect that comes from just being a student athlete, to you're now pulling up in a car to clean people's homes. And I'm just like, at that point, and you're young as well, like at that point in time, just the humility of that. Was there ever a sense of like, I don't want to do this, man, it's embarrassing?
For me, no. Like, I was embarrassed. Yeah, I was embarrassed, but again, it goes back to like I told you in the beginning that, like, okay. Like I always had that, it's embarrassing because, people talk to you like crap, and, people look at you a certain way, and yeah, like you a joke now, come clean my house, or and you just tend to look at. I was embarrassed by it. I think I was more embarrassed on the scale of getting around really successful entrepreneurs and them asking me, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm a janitor, right? And that's when I think my second year when I became really successful in it, people still didn't know what I do. Because I was just like, I'm just a janitor. But at that point, once you start making everything, at first it's like, well, he's a janitor. Now everybody's like, I want to start a cleaning company. Year 3, right? And once you in that year 3 range and you start to get some money and you start hiring people under you and you start to do little different things, now it's like, yeah, like what you doing now? So it's just one of those, transition processes that you kind of go through, not to jump around. I went through that here. I came here to start a lounge and I had to go down and start a food truck. And I threw a grand tasting, and I'm coming from a place in where, I moved here very successful. Like I have a bunch of businesses at home that still run. But here, me trying to be so quick and trying to just think I can just jump state to state and be successful in 2 different states, it didn't work that way. And I lost. I fell flat on my face quick. But starting back up and being, this is just a food truck. And you'll hear people say, I remember my probation officer. I was like, I always say I own restaurants. And I'm going to still say it to this day because now I do own a restaurant, right? And I was like, I own a restaurant. He was like, no, you own food trucks. And I remember looking at him say that, and I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, it's that sense of still, but I think that's I think a gift that I do have that a lot of people don't, because people are so like, I don't care what anybody thinks, or I take everything personal.
You know what, I want to give the numbers and make it real for people. You mentioned that you start this cleaning business. You said that in the second year was when it started to become successful. Like, give that perspective. Like, how much are you making with that cleaning business in year 2?
So year 1, I was only doing like three, it was like $390 a month, $390. I had one commercial cleaning account. But in year 2, that's when I kind of met Alex Danofi. He kind of taught me a bunch of things about it. Beginning of year 2, I think I hit like $1,000 a month, and I was like, all right, this is gonna be great. And then he just started unloading commercial cleaning contracts on me, and I started figuring some on myself. And then by that end of the year, I was at like $12,000 a month. But I was doing majority of the work myself. So at that time, it was me and a friend of mine, and we were just doing the work. And after that, year 3, we started to figure out delegation methods on getting the accounts and subbing them out to other cleaning companies and just taking the money every single 30 days. And at that point, I think COVID struck. And then once COVID struck, it blew out the roof.
At its height, how much are you making with the cleaning company?
I want to say in 2020, that was around COVID. We was doing around that 90 to like 100 something thousand a month. and that's not us profiting the money. That's what the company was bringing in. But we didn't lift a finger at that time. We were just subbing out everything.
Yeah.
Like our biggest contract was Chop Hospital, a King of Prussia. And then we also had contracts in the King of Prussia Mall. And that's like one of the biggest malls in America.
Yeah.
So when people look at our company and say, how are these guys doing this? We knew a method and we cracked the code, and every last one of my friends got cleaning companies now. And we hired all of them.
Yeah. It's like the narrative changed.
After that, it was a wrap.
Yeah.
And they still have these companies to this day.
Yeah. What is that, given where you started and that kind of, that rock bottom point where everyone's dismissed you, what is the feeling when you own a business that's doing 90,000, 100,000 a month? Like, does that even register, or you're already thinking about the next thing?
No, man, I'm already thinking about the next thing. And then, you know, I don't know if people were looking for me to like come back and be like, Howard, I told you so. Like, I just think you know, start to believe more in the quote of, you know, treat the janitor like the CEO. And if you learn to do that, you'll become real successful. So to this day, you know, like I said, this company at this point is doing, you know, really well. I'll still go in there and clean the floors. I'll still go in there and clean, you know, clean the wastewater. I'll clean toilets. I'll clean shit to this day. You know, I'm no better than anybody. You know, I think that what those processes did, and I think you'll hear me speak a lot about, I fell in love with the process because it made me who I am today as an entrepreneur. You know, I'm not too big for anyone. And that's something that was built off of, you know, Wonderful Cleaner. And that's why, you know, I think that business really does. It lays on my heart. That's the only one I didn't. That's the only one I'm not going to sell.
Yeah. You know what? So from that point, you go and do junk removal business, you investing in properties. Like, talk me through some of those other business ventures and which ones were the most lucrative for you at that time.
Well, yeah, we had the cleaning. We had a lot of money. We just didn't know what to do with the money. And at that point, I think I bought my first property, and I was just like, okay, this is going to pay me and it's going to grow in equity, and great. And I was intrigued by real estate because when I was in Philadelphia, you know, there was a hot topic of a time where all entrepreneurs just own real estate, right? And they were trying to buy in Philadelphia. And what I did was I was like, okay, I'm going to go to these dead zones where nobody's paying attention to. And basically when I went there, you know, everybody was paying like $200,000, $300,000 for houses, and I was getting it for like $30,000 and like $25,000. I think the highest I paid was like $55,000. And yeah, I would get paid from the 30-day contract, and I would just go buy a house. But my account would go probably like to $5,000. It'll keep going up and down, but I would just keep buying real estate. And at that point, I bought 7 in 1 year. And at that time, it was just like, you know, I owned them free and clear. So you got to figure the next year, they all grew in assets. Like, they all grew in equity. Every single property shot out the roof. And from there, I talked to a mentor I met off Instagram. His name was Rob, and he was kind of getting out of the game. And he sold me a good chunk of his units. And then yeah, he was so cool to where he sold me to him on like seller financing. So I was just paying like $5,000 a month for it with no loans or no nothing, no interest, and just give it to me. And then yeah, they just once I learned how to refinance, it was a wrap from there.
What's the best deal that you ever made in real estate?
I still got this house to this day. It was Minersville. It was Minersville. Some of Millersville University, Minersville. And I bought that house off. It was on Facebook Marketplace, and it was a wholesaler deal. And she was like DMing me. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy this house. And I paid $3,000 for this house, but it was in the dead zone where people don't pay attention to. And my lingo for real estate is not everybody else's lingo for real estate. They might call it something else. I call them dead zones. But my thing was, if I can get houses for around $10,000 and rent each unit out for around $750 to $1,000, I can get my money back off this thing in less than 2 years. Me as an investor, if I can get my money back in less than 5 years, it's a great investment for me. And that's how I read my numbers. So at a point, I was just buying them sight unseen. If I seen it, I knew the roof, I'll send my contract out to inspect it, make sure no liens on it. I just want to buy it because I would just do the numbers that quick and move on them that quick. But yeah, the best deal I had was Minersville, and that was for $3,000. And I think that house is worth around 80 something today.
Oh yeah.
But it's free and clear. So just sitting there, it pays me 13. I think she paid rent today. It pays me $13.50. You don't do nothing for that house.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, cause I want to get onto like the move to Houston and everything that happens with that. But I think about what you said right in the beginning of this conversation is that growing up, you didn't have people that you wanted to be like. You only had people that you didn't want to be like. But then once you start building these companies and the way that you start building other businesses off the back of that, it's like you are moving in such a shrewd manner. And I'm like, who are the mentors, or like what are the books that you're reading even that is giving you this information, this knowledge?
I'm very self-taught. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I am a mindset guy. I am what you call a mindset freak. You know, basically what I really care about is, mindset over everything. And I also, believe in, just failing forward. I'm not afraid to get in something. Like, I'm not, like, no investment scares me. And I think that's where, a lot of the success lies in that, because I know I'm going to be able to build my way out of it. But I read Rich Dad Poor Dad one time, and I understood that you can't trade time for money. And at that rate, I said, you know what? That's when I started delegating every single clean contract out. And at one point, I want to say the lady I was with, my daughter's mother, she was like, "You're so stupid. Like, we're only making $3,000 off this $12,000. I mean, off this, I think I was making like $15,000 out, but I delegated everything because I focused on that delegation system. And my thing to that is I'm always get more contracts. I just need to build workers, build the companies." And then she was like, "Well, we're losing all this money." And I'm like, "It's okay. Just watch the system. And then the back end of the system just loaded up with like mad contracts. And we just pushed all those people to the contracts. And I was like, "Yeah, we're back to 15. But now this time we're not doing no work." And she's like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is the book."
Yeah.
And I let her read it, and then I read it with her. So I read that book twice.
Yeah.
And after that, once I understood that method, I use that for every single thing. And that's why I barely work. I understand how to delegate and not trade time for money.
Yeah. It's funny doing this show because I've had so many entrepreneurs that like their start was Rich Dad, Poor Dad and reading that book. And I think the thing, and even stood out to me when we spoke last week, is one of your talents is like you read or you take in the information and then it's instantly applied in the field. And I think that a lot of the times when I speak to people, it's like they'll read things, they'll take in information, and then they'll sit on the information. And it's like there's a lot of power in like the application, executing, to your point. You know what? You build these kind of profitable business, and the profitable businesses invest in properties like where you're from. You then sell a few of these properties, and you make this decision to move to Houston and invest in like a club kind of lounge. You spend $170,000. I think you said you put in $170,000 into this.
Yeah.
Talk to me through going to Houston and then what happened with that money.
Yeah, so it was I've been to Houston one time before I moved here. And like I said, my whole objective to move here was to be around, more cultural diversity people and stuff like that. And then I seen a guy open up a club, and I went to it, and I was just intrigued by how it worked. And I'm like, it's no way, that you people are letting these people consume so much and y'all not making no money off these people. I'm not a partier. I don't party. Any DUI I basically had, I had it from drinking at the house and probably going to Wawa or some stuff like that. I don't party. So when I look at these people who spend up this large amount of money, I'm just like, why? Why not? So I met a business partner in the club setting, and, I think like a week later, he was like, yo, I got this spot, let's go in. And, I'm from a blue collar state. When we kind of do things, we do things the right way. We just do business. It's not, it's not a huge runaround or a huge knowing. If you want to do business, you do business. And the way I kind of done things my whole life was like speed and accuracy. Like I'm able to grow things really quick because I believe in speed and accuracy. And I believe in getting things in and keeping momentum on things and going to the next thing. I don't believe in, just taking too much time and paperwork and all that stuff. I'm like, man, I don't even believe in meetings. Like I don't believe in any of that. Like if we're gonna meet, let's talk on the phone, to talk on the face, and give me 30 minutes of your time, and then go about your day, right? And my thing was, those tactics that I already kind of came with, I didn't apply them to to this relationship. So me being fast, he took advantage of me being fast. And before I knew it, we were 4 months in on a project and the doors were slammed on us. And I'm like, what's going on? And at that point, construction got really, I'm a real estate guy. I pumped $173,000 into the spot. I know what it should look like. I can build half of a house for that. And yeah, the landlord closed the door, so you guys aren't paying rent. And I was just giving my money to him, just like, hey, pay the landlord. And, I had paperwork involved and stuff like that. But at that point, once I took that loss, it was one of those things where I say, I shot myself in the foot. I was upset. I was real upset because, the culture I do come from, if you do something like that, that's more of, a devastating thing, and, things got to get dealt with. But the other aspect of it was, you got to learn to blame yourself sometimes. And I'm really big on self-accountability and understanding where I messed up at. And, I had to just blame myself. So it was one of those things where I just looked at myself in the mirror and said, I was dumb. But I remember something that someone told me, and it was a saying that said, you don't make your first 10,000 until you lose 1,000. You don't make your first 100,000 until you lose 10,000. You don't make your first million until you lose 100,000. And I had $1 million always in equity. I never had any cash. That year I lost was what, 2023, Jess? 2023? I came back 2024 and grossed $1 million in 11 months. So it's also a sense that success just leaves clues. And if you figure them clues out early, it'll work. So yeah, that's what happened.
You know what, talking about that, the partner or the person that you went into business with in that club, you said, I started doing some digging and that's when I found out these people weren't getting paid. And then he decided to just go ghost. And then the landlord locked the doors. And then you go on to say, it was one of those times where, I thought to myself, like, what the hell did I just do? Like, I lost it. When you said I lost it, what do you mean by that?
It was more of like the anger portion of it, but then more of, when you operating at this level in business, your accounts have to be at a certain amount. You still got payroll, you still got things that need to be paid, you still got account payables, you still got bills. At that time, my bills were around $16,000 a month. I couldn't afford to take a loss at that time, right? Because it was either somebody's not getting paid or, I got to figure some other things out and move some more money around, right? And by the grace of the support I do have at home, the mother of my child, she kind of lent me about $10,000 just to, hold over some things for a minute until I was able to sell another house and move some things around. And yeah, so I had to do that. But that's when, things slowed down a little bit, for the kids. They used to big Christmases and big things and big gifts and stuff like that. And at that point, I couldn't provide that. I made a mistake and I went out there and invested some things and stuff like that. So when I spoke about losing it, it's like, yeah, like I made a big mistake.
You know what? You speak about the anger portion of it, and even the fact that like where you're from, and to be honest, I think for a lot of people where they're from, if someone takes money like that from them, there's going to be repercussions for that.
Yeah.
There ever was a thought in your, like, what stopped it from getting to that point?
That's crazy because it's literally this morning I just text my my lawyer and was showing him the CNBC article, and at that time, you know, I'm fighting another case, you know, on probation violation. I'm fighting a 5-year case. So as this is all going on, you know, I'm trying to get this up and running and get this going on, because if I do got to go do time, this business is still being able to take care of things and stuff like that. And yeah, any wrong move, I'm done. And wrong move as far as, you know, anything I pop up and I'm done. You know, also I was out on bail at that time too. So, you know, anything driving without license slip up, you going back to jail. And I just couldn't afford to go back to jail at this time. So, you know, it was in a space where I just said, you know what, I just gotta let it be what it gotta be.
You'd learned, I guess, from even just the earlier experiences of like the consequences that would come with certain decisions.
It's a bunch of times I walk away from a lot of things that a lot of men will look at and go, you know, oh, you gonna let that happen? You know, my thing is I don't got the time to sit in jail right now. And I also don't got the time of me being, you know, a God-fearing man to be questioned or do some things that I know I'm not gonna be able to, you know, be aligned with. So, you know, people do me wrong and stuff happen. You know, I know what's on the other side. Like, you ain't about to tell me what's on the other side. Like I said, I think my biggest thing was when I seen that boy get that light, I seen a soul leave his body. Like, never coming home. And if you ever been in a penitentiary, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm curious, since those events, have you had a conversation? Have you even seen the business partner that you had, the one that he took the money from you?
Yeah, I seen him. I actually seen him like a few weeks ago. Conversation, you know, just on, you know, it's more like I said, I ain't mad at you. Like, I understand this business, I understand things you do, but, you know, you got to deal with those things that you do. You know, I ain't here to judge you either, because I don't know what you had going on. You know what I'm saying? Where you had to move money around and stuff like that. But what I will say is, you know, success is, you know, it's a good weapon if you use it right. And I ain't hurting. You know, there's still rumors that go around that, you know, you got a bad name now and you got to figure things out. But I ain't hurting for no money. I ain't hurting for nothing. You know, I got everything that was supposed to come to me, and you're going to get everything that's supposed to come to you.
You know what? It was like when I was watching and just reading about your story, that same lot that the club or like the lounge that you were building was going to be on ends up becoming the lot that you build Goodies on. Talk to me about Goodies, because you open this food truck and it seems like from pretty much day one you have a ton of customers. Within months you guys are making $22,000 per week. You even mentioned within the first 11 months you made the first $1 million. Talk to me about that business. Why was it so successful, and why was it so successful so quickly?
I think that, you know, like, again, like, to know me as a person, as an entrepreneur, I think, you know, the space I was in, you know, I was in one of those redemption spaces. And, you know, at that point, I just seen green. It was time to go. So, you know, everything that we did was very intentional. From our rollout, from the marketing strategy, from the, you know, buying the trailers, from getting the trailers built, from shooting the content, you know, from building the story behind the business. You know, we were building in the beginning. We built every single thing in the beginning that's happening now. You know, we didn't go into it with a recipe book. You know, we studied different models of Chipotle and Chick-fil-A's and figuring out how to get out food fast. And, you know, we didn't worry about the little trailer that we had. We didn't worry about, you know, the people that was around it at that point. You know, we just took it, looked at it, put our business structure together, formed a great marketing strategy and rolled it out. And, you know, the way we rolled it out was, you know, we had a lot of people looking and going, is this a restaurant or a food truck? You know, we had a PR team around it before we went. You know, I took every single business strategy I knew, from the marketing side to the connection side to the food side, and put them all in one space, and we just locked in. And it only takes, you know, like I said, a month and a half before, you know, you finally put it out there to the world. And at that point, you know, once you putting it out there, it was go time. So we were really intentional about how we was going to build this thing.
Yeah. Talk to me about the marketing, because you spend $1,000 on the trailer. You come up with like a simple set of recipes and like a menu for people.
Mm-hmm.
How, and there's so many people, I'm sure some of them are listening to this at home, that they want to build like a restaurant or a food truck. Like that is their dream.
Mm-hmm.
That's their delusion. That's the thing that they want to make happen.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the marketing approach that you took. You have this $1,000 trailer. How were you getting customers to this in the beginning?
Well, like I said, me personally, I created a whole rollout. You know, I had a family and friends. I had a tasting. You know, I put together a bomb menu. You know, I picked one of the best chefs. That was my buddy. That I was really supposed to go in business with him. But yeah, I was very intentional. You know, but you know, for someone who, you know, I have no experience in the kitchen at all. I have experience at marketing. So, you know, just making sure your stuff look clean. You know, brand yourself really well. Hire that PR department. You know, get your, you know, rollout going as far as where are you going at, finding a deficit in the market. You know, what are you selling? How are you selling it? Where are you selling it at? And then, you know, I think the most important part is, why are you selling this, right? Like for our thing is for goodies, you know, we believe in good people, God, and good vibes, right? And we understanding that giving somebody a good plate of food at a certain time, you know, in a space where it's a bunch of partying is very important to us, right? So we're very intentional to doing things that way. When it comes down, you know, to where I see a lot of people get in this industry and not do too well at, is they pay too much attention to the taste of the food and not pay too much attention to how the food is actually being prepared and being dished out to the people that's in front of you. We're in a microwavable generation when people hate waiting. At my truck, you get soul food in less than 5 minutes, right? And outside of getting soul food in less than 5 minutes, you still gonna get a good quality plate, right? But you're gonna get it less than 5 minutes, and it's gonna be hot, and it's gonna be a home cooked meal after a certain time where you can't get nothing, you know, but that type of food. So that was our thing. You know, like I said, a lot of people, they come in the industry and try to cook everything from scratch and cook during that day, and then they make these 12-hour days, and after that 12-hour day, they turn into like a $600 profit. And it's like, well, this isn't worth it. Well, it's not worth it because you're not preparing this thing right. Like, we don't cook everything from scratch every single day. We work as a restaurant. If you go into a restaurant and you see the back of a kitchen, you know, everything is prepped out in one day. You know, everything is basically put together to where it's stored well, has your labels on there. You're able to package it well enough to take it to your truck. You're able to have the space on your truck to be able to serve these dishes. Then you're able to get these dishes out to the people. You know, from what I see is a lot of people that do come in this industry is more of, all right, I got a truck, I'm going to try to do this my own and cook it my way and do it my way. You know, another thing was we built systems around our food truck. You know, our food truck isn't just one of those trucks where you just, you know, getting in the kitchen and putting recipes together, your grandma recipe, and making the macaroni and cheese. And the reason we did do things these way, systematic, is because we'll go to Chipotle, right, and you'll go to Chick-fil-A, and everything tastes the same every single time. Why? Because they have a recipe book, right? So what should we need? We have a recipe book, meaning anybody can go into that thing and cook any of those dishes because they just got to follow the recipe. You know, so when it comes to having that recipe book, it comes with us being able to hire out and delegate things. So now anybody can come in there and cook it. Now we're not working on the truck. We're only focusing on the marketing aspect. The recipe book goes into with the prep team. The prep team brings the food to the truck, and then the customer service is already done. So it's like we treat it like a restaurant, but it's a food truck without the overhead of a restaurant.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, and I even got this when we spoke last week, is like, you really do your homework on these businesses. Like you really do the study and the prep before you even go into business. It's like you're very clear on things. But I wanted to double click on something that you said. You said the importance of finding your deficit in the market. What does that mean?
So when we looked at Houston, there was nothing here to eat at the 12 o'clock except for tacos. There's nothing but taco trucks here, right? There's a lot of taco trucks here. Being from where I'm from at, I'm like, I need some fried chicken. I need something besides some tacos. And we noticed that there were no soul food spots that were open past that time. And, we decided to be, I don't know if we were the only ones at that time. I just know I couldn't find any. And at that time, we were like, you know what, we're going to be those people. So, picking the times and stuff like that was more of, it's a lot of soul food in Houston. There's not a lot of late night soul food in Houston. So we decided, okay, this is our deficit. We also looked at the area that we're around. We're in Edo, we're downtown. We couldn't find any soul food around this way. I searched, I looked it up. I'm like, there's nothing around here. And when I see that, I just see green. And that's why I said we're going to plump this truck right here in this area, this location during these times. And we're right across the street from a bar that lets out. And let's set up shop. So for someone who's trying to build, don't be afraid to say, well, I like soul food at 12 o'clock, because I do like soul food at 12 o'clock. And I took a chance on my ideas. People will say, well, what if nobody else likes it? It's not about what nobody else is like. It's about what you think that you need in there, and be creative enough to build that in that market.
Yeah, even as I was listening to you talk about it, I can see the excitement when you talk about basically finding the gap in the market. You said that's when I start seeing green. And it seems like, because one of the things, and we even spoke about this before, is you find these business opportunities and then you're able to launch them and scale very fast. Like within 90 days, it feels like you've got something out to the market. It's ready to go. And it feels like, is that correct? That's when you get excited, is when you see the gap in the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, then also being able to give the people, something that I think they would like, because you tend to look around and you think of all this is just ideas. Like everything that we're doing right now is ideas that somebody else gave to someone else, right? So when I see things like that, I just look at it and go, yeah, that's a gap, and I think that it will work here, and let's do it.
What does that first, when you have an idea, you found the gap, what does that first 90 days of a business look like? Where are the areas that you're focusing on? It's if we get this right, it will be a success.
Everything is in the marketing, but it's more of, kind of seeing what people want, right? And being able to, execute what they kind of want. And so when I'm looking at it in that first 90 days, and I'm looking at it going, all right, this is about to work. It's the marketing, it's the, giving them something that's undeniable, but it's also, I don't spend a lot of time searching for opportunities. I look at the opportunities that come, and then I execute, on the back end of that opportunity. So for example, I had to rebrand Bird and Buns. We weren't doing too well. And, I'm from Philadelphia. So, I'm like, everybody that I heard here has never had a Philadelphia good cheesesteak. So I go home, talk to a couple of guys that got cheesesteak spots, see what they're using, see the cheese, see the bread, see the meat, come back up here, perfect the cheesesteak, just perfect it. And now this truck that we basically have that was supposed to be burgers and mixed with a Texas style cuisine and wings and briskets, cut all of it. Let's make the perfect cheesesteak. Let's give it a brand. Let's give it something where they know it by. And once you tend to do that, then now you'll start seeing the customers. Then you start running the ads behind it. Then you start bringing in the influencers. Then you start bringing in the people. And then now people are going, yo, that's Bird and Buns. They're known for that cheesesteak, right? At that point, I know I got them. And that's just, for that food industry business. But at that point, I will always say, when you're building something, what are you building? What are you known for? Because if you're known for something, you're known for, hey, I'm going to go get a bowl from Chipotle. Chipotle got you. Chipotle has a bowl. Or you're going to Chick-fil-A because the customer service, Chick-fil-A got you. And it's crazy that you look at those models and you go, well, Chick-fil-A, you're not even talking about the food. When the last time you heard a person say Chick-fil-A, oh, I'm going to Chick-fil-A because I want the nuggets. Anybody knows Chick-fil-A for what? Customer service.
Yeah.
They got you, right? So I think finding that thing is like something that I'm kind of good at identifying, but I think people that's building businesses need to be able to identify that.
You know what? It's like interesting, actually, even the way that you talk about the cleaning business, then the junk removal business, then real estate, and then food and the restaurants and the food trucks. It's like all of these industries, and you let me know if this is correct, but it sounds like you build like a playbook, and it's through experience. It's through like trying different things. You build a playbook of what are the key things that I need to do in order to be successful. And it's like, once you open Bird and Buns or like the second food truck, it's like you're trying to figure out the formula initially so that it kind of matches the playbook. As soon as you feel that alignment, it's like, it seems like you're like, oh, okay, we've got one.
Yeah, that's the same thing, because you're exactly right. It's the same thing with, like I said, like cleaning. We're not gonna do the cleaning. We're gonna create a systematic system to where we're not gonna charge you the franchise fee because we need the workers. So if you understand how cleaning works with Coverall, they'll charge you a franchise, you gotta buy into it, then they'll take a percentage off of that, then they'll go from there, and then they basically say, I'm gonna give you this big old company into this and this. And basically they're doing the same thing we're doing, but they're charging you $15,000 to be a part of it. We don't want to charge you because we need the workers. We found the accounts, we just need the workers. Right? So I guess that is the same thing. It's the same playbook with everything. We just find that niche and then we just strike it from there. And then once we strike it, now I know that I found the workers, now I'm gonna go strike the ads to get the more accounts coming in. And it's the same thing with junk removal. We can be in 50 different states, with this one company, because all we got to do is pick the ads up, put ads in Virginia, put ads in New York, put ads in New Jersey, and put ads everywhere, and just delegate every single job out to somebody else, right? And ideally, the money isn't in us going out there to go find a person to pick up junk. The money is in being the middleman of it and just taking, letting them do the job, and then you taking the money and paying them off of it. The same thing with, goodies. The money's not in us making the best soul food and the thing. The money's in making good soul food fast with a happy customer. Right? And that's Bird and Buns, the same thing. Yeah. Perfect the best cheesesteak. Yeah. I tell my chefs that the fries, I don't give a fuck about the fries, the burger. I need this cheesesteak to be this way. And, it's crazy because we were so 15, we were doing 15 2 weeks ago before I fired the chef. And now...
You were doing 15,000?
No, 15 cheesesteaks.
15 cheesesteaks, okay.
Only a week. So I fired the chef. And now we're averaging around 90 to 120. Since I got in there and pre-mixed the whole thing.
Yeah. Once you get the system right, it's...
Go. And now if you look at Bird and Buns on social media, you're going to find one of the best cheesesteaks in Houston.
Yeah.
And again, we just striked it.
The first time I really heard someone talk about systems and playbooks and building businesses in the way that you're describing was when I read this book called E-Myth. You would like it, actually. It would make a lot of sense to you. I'm curious for you, you've mentioned systems multiple times. How did you learn this? Was there something that you read? Was there a mentor? I'm just thinking for the person at home that wants to start learning more about it.
Mine was ran off of just, being in the systems, I played college ball, I played football, and then I was in jail. And then that was my experience with systems. And you wake up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, you make your bed at a certain time, you go to sleep at a certain time, and you put things together. And if you follow this rule, you follow this system, things will work. The same thing with football. Like if you run your route, but if you run it slow and it's a timing thing and he can't pass you the ball at that right type of time, then you just mess up the whole play. So when we tunnel those type of things into football, in the business, we make sure that everybody is running and playing their position how they're supposed to play their position. So you may have, this little old food truck, but this little old food truck, right, this 16-foot trailer is not that big. Like it's really not. If people think that we really tell fibs if we don't show them our like CNBC had to identify our numbers, it's not that big. Like it's like not that big. So we serve 4 proteins and 4 different sides out of there. And basically, if we don't have a system to run back and forth to the prep, heat up the stuff, cook the mac this way, cook the cabbage this way, cook the greens that way, make sure that the plates is already on it, make sure that our par counts and all that stuff is corrected. It doesn't work. And when people look at it from the outside, they're like, how the fuck is this working off this 16-foot food truck? There's a system behind it. There's a system.
Yeah. You know what's interesting listening to you? And everything made sense when you said it. It's like you see everything as systems. Like you see systems everywhere. That's interesting. You know what? I'm curious, like, when was that first moment? Because it seemed to happen pretty fast. When was that first moment with Goodies when you were like, oh, this is going to be something, like this is going to be successful?
Day one.
Day one.
Like day one. I actually have a video of that. Like day one, I was sitting on a computer and just I live downtown and basically I was just building it out and I'm just like, once I got the trailer, once I started doing everything, put out the marketing material and I had all this stuff planned out, I'm like, this is gonna work. Now I guess the question you really asked me, when did I know it was gonna be like a hit? It was around my birthday last year. And I didn't go out, I didn't do anything. I just worked. And I remember walking up and I seeing a line. So if you know where Goodies is, and I'm seeing a line wrapped all the way around to this other bar, Kobo. So it's like wrapped around this way. And at that time I had 3 employees on there. And they were just like swamped. And mind you, I always made really good money, but a wise man in business always told me this too. He said that, you want to make, millions, learn how to get paid by the day, the weeks. And then he said, if you want to make hundreds of thousands, learn how to get paid by the month. And he said, if you want to make billions, learn how to get paid by the minute. And I figured out how to make 100,000 and get paid every 30 days. That was cleaning. Junk removal came into it, wasn't really too strategic. Food was getting paid every day. So that's how you kind of make millions. So I figured out, okay, I'm going to get paid every day off this. And now I remember walking in there, and I think my highest day was like 10. It was like $10,000 in a day. And the line was around the corner. I'm like, Goodies to the moon. Shit about to go crazy. And then from there, it just went crazy. And we brought in a consultant chef because we had to figure out, how to amp the system up. Now, the system was doing great, making that 5,000, $10,000 a week. But now you're doing 20,000 a week. Your wait times is getting longer. People starting to complain more. The food's starting to get a little sloppier. So at that time, in any system that you got, you got to elevate. You got to hire new people, hire faster people, put more people in place. And that's exactly what we did at that time. And then we just had to manage it, that 20,000 a week mark. So managing that was kind of, cool. And then after that, now I'm managing 2 kitchens of like 2 really good bars, and they're like both growing. So you just keep critiquing the system, add more components, add better pieces. I remember at a point, we couldn't take, because it was a lot of my friends when I first started, like Chubbs was like a good kid. But I had to look him in his face and tell him, like, I'm not going to get to 1 million weeks on this truck. You're moving too slow. And, they didn't understand that. They just, looked at it and went, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you're moving too slow. This is happening too fast. And, I had to make the decision is to ramp up.
You know what? It's so good. We had a conversation last week, and one of the things that I asked you, it'd be interesting if you remember this. I said, if you were to do like a seminar or write a book, for someone that they want to achieve some of the things that you've achieved, like they're inspired by your story, they want to achieve some of the things, build some of the things that you've built in their own way. And I asked you, I said, what would be the title of this book? Do you remember what you told me?
Mm-hmm. It was, I think it was like The Perfect Brick.
The Art of Laying Bricks.
Yeah, The Art of Laying Bricks, yeah.
What does that mean? The Art of Laying Bricks. Why that?
Bro, I remember when I kind of first, started this journey, back then I was just like, when I was going to step out and step into this world, I always say, I'm going to make them view me as so undeniable. You know what I'm saying? That the next time they see me, it's going to be on these, something, it's going to be big, right? And, every single day, I just always try to do things, perfect. Always try to make sure that everything is, put together. I don't prepare for the next day. I don't prepare for the next week. I don't prepare for the next month. We plan. We put goals in mind. But today, if we gotta get out here and we gotta make, like I said, with Patterson Park, we gotta make the best cheesesteak that we can make today, and lay that brick as perfect as possible. Before you know it, we'll have a wall, and that's something that we kind of did in every single business model that we built. We built them with intention. We built them with integrity. We showed up. We did good jobs. And people respect that. And people want to be involved with that. So when I always say, my background, I'm not qualified for none of this stuff. None of it. Like, none of this stuff I'm qualified for. But, if you focus on taking stuff one day at a time and making that day perfect, and laying that brick, before you know it, you'll have a wall. So that's kind of how I always build every foundation.
I love that analogy. I think I was telling you this before, but the first time I heard it was Will Smith in his book. And he makes the point that a lot of the times as people, we think about that big, like the beautiful wall, like the final outcome of what we're going to build. And he says, all you have to think about is just placing one brick perfectly in the most perfect position possible. Do that again and again and again and again. Eventually, you will have a beautiful wall. And it's the exact same thing that you're talking about. You know what? Before we get out of here, because like I said, I didn't know about your story until I saw it on CNBC. And I think about even some of the things that you've told me during our conversation about feeling this label of the criminal record and going to prison on you and feeling dismissed and counted out and really like disrespected. What is it? Is it surreal for you even when you see, I don't know, some of the people that are reaching out to you now, even just seeing your story on CNBC? Like, how does that feel like you're like vindicating? Like, how does that feel to you?
Like I said, I'm a very private person. So like the people reaching out, I always kind of been an inspiration back at home, to the people that I kind of grew up around, and then, people that I kind of been in jail with, they see me out and about and they like, that dude's really, so I always kind of had that. I think being able to see it on this type of platform and it's like, it's actually happening. It's overwhelming, but it's more of, like, dang, like, it's a quote I live by, John 13:7, and he goes, "For what you do not know now, later on you understand." And I stand there, I think I looked in the mirror the other day, just looking at like, damn, like every single thing that you went through, the hard times, the embarrassment, the being kicked out, the being this, the being that. Now look, like, and I feel like we ain't even scratched the surface of what we kind of got to do. And that's the part where I'm just like, if you guys are like, if they see this and inspire, I can't wait till 5 years later to be able to see what we can do, because we've been working. This is just work. This is something that like I said, I come from a blue collar area, state. We workers, but I think that I think that in the next few years it's gonna be crazy.
5 years from now, where are you?
Hey man, well, goodies to the moon first and foremost. I plan on putting goodies in like bigger cities. With this model that we have, this system of basically being able to bring in a room service type of vibe to hotel, to apartment complexes. And with this first deal that we strike, we didn't strike just a restaurant or a bar. We strike a deal on where we're going to be offering a room service type system to an apartment complex. It's something that kind of never been seen before. It's structured around us basically being able to bring more tenants to the apartment complex, but being also able to bring a real estate angle to just basically us running the business. And it acts as a subscription based concept put into a restaurant, which is something that's completely different that we can kind of wanted to put together. So just goodies in definitely multiple different cities. We want to kind of make it. We don't want to put them all around. I think I want to limit it at probably like a 50 location process. But I think my biggest thing with this first one was getting, that system down pat and being able to, work inside that system. So that's that. And then sports bars. Like, I love hospitality. Like, for some reason, everybody say it's challenging. It is challenging, but it's fun to me. I think being able to help people and being able to see people a lot and just bring a different, vibe, to people that, that come into your establishment or even be around your establishment is like cool to me. You meet a bunch of crazy people here, right? I owned a trucking company before, and I think truck drivers are, insane. But talking to chefs are insane, bro. And to be able to work, hand to hand and side to side with some really good chefs, that's cool. That's fun to me. So I actually think I found a love in hospitality.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Dawon Matthews, thank you so much, man.
No problem, sir.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this episode, you're going to absolutely love what we did with this one right here. Click here.